welcome to our channel. We are handling and talking about a tough conversation and topic today with everything going on, racial injustice, COVID-19. So many things are affecting our community. And day by day, Rell and I are learning different things about each other and different experiences that we have with racism or had with racism. So in our 20 odd years of being here, we wanted to just touch on these things and speak about these topics that are affecting our community and affected us personally. So to get started, the first question I wanted to ask Rell, and then we'll go back and forth. So I'll ask him a question and he'll be asking me that same question. So the first thing I wanted you to tell our viewers is like a little bit about your environment and how you grew up.
So for me personally, I come from two completely different sides. My father, he's Jamaican, so my entire father's side of the family is Jamaican. And my mother's side of the family, of course, was born in America. My mother was born in New York. When my dad came over to this country, he ended up settling in New York. I'm one of five between my mother and father. And so when growing up, I moved around a lot into different places. I was originally born in Virginia, stayed there for some time, then moved to Maryland, then moved to North Carolina, and that's ultimately where we settled. But growing up, I've been in some pretty interesting neighborhoods. I've been in a lower income neighborhood. I've gotten a chance to be around, and I never really even knew what it was. Growing up, I was just having fun, being outside. And I didn't really know like the environment that I was really in. But looking back on it, I've had some very interesting experiences as a child to see and know, a lot of the stuff that's going on right now. So moving from, to Virginia to Maryland and then going into now to North Carolina, that was the culture shock. That was a totally different environment for me. So I went from, Petersburg, Virginia, which is a very country part of Virginia, to Germantown, Maryland, and then to Cary, North Carolina, which if you look on the map or if you do some research, Cary, North Carolina is one of the top 10 places to live, one of the safest places to live in the entire United States of America. And so I got a chance to go to a lot of diverse schools. So Cary, North Carolina is like a melting pot. People come from everywhere. It's cheaper to live. It's really good schools. It's a lot of opportunities as far as tech. And so growing up, from third grade, because I moved to North Carolina in second grade. So from third grade all the way up into graduating high school, I've been in some very diverse environments, and I've witnessed some very interesting things, whether being in school, talking to different, classmates. And so those are some of the experiences that I'll share. But for me, it went from being in Virginia and Maryland to North Carolina in a very diverse environment, which led me to want to go to an HBCU so that I can understand and be more a part of the culture that I come from. So
That's good. I'll respond to that question as well. I grew up, I would like to say completely country. We moved around. I was born in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. We moved to Florida. Yeah, so I was born in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. We moved to Florida. I believe I went up to first grade in Florida, and then we moved back to Elizabeth City, North Carolina, where I continued my studies until I left for college. So as far as my environment, it changed so much. So Florida has more of a Latin American vibe, a lot of Latin American students. I was at a charter school, so it was pretty interesting. But I feel like I was in Rocky Mount or Florida, and I was in charter school. I don't really remember. But overall, I grew up in a country environment. My high school was actually predominantly Black. Lived in low income areas as well up until the later days in my high school experience. But overall, my parents, it's like we didn't really know we were in a low income area either until we moved into a house in a community that was completely different. That's when it kind of switched for us, and we were like, oh, we were living like this for X amount of years, and then, you know, things kind of switched. But so my parents did a very great job of sheltering us and making sure that we saw the positive in all of the negative things that were happening around us. So that's a little bit of my environment growing up. So on to the next question. Tell them a little bit about your experience with racism here in America.
So I mean, it's pretty interesting. I've had a couple instances that I can kind of go through. So the first one, which happened at a very young age, I think I was in like 3rd grade, is when I first moved to North Carolina, and I was in a class, and we were talking about the civil rights movement, and I think I was having a conversation. I was going back and forth with a kid in class who was of the Caucasian color, and you know, he said, I forgot what we were talking about, but he blurted out in front of the entire class. He was like, you know, that's why your mom was a slave back in the day. And so, you know, at that age, I was kind of like, you know, the teacher, of course, thankfully the teacher reacted to it and kind of checked the situation. And, you know, I didn't really, if that was to happen to me now, you know, it would be a different response, because I understand, like, I truly understand, like, what it means to be an African American in this day and age, and what my ancestors and my family and every black person has gone through. I would have reacted totally different. But being that young, you know, I was just kind of like, dang, did he really just say that? And then, you know, just kind of kept it pushing. Another instance, this was later on in life when I was in high school. I got stopped on prom day more than once, multiple occasions, for very minuscule things. You know, I wasn't breaking the law or anything. I didn't get a ticket. You know, I really just feel like the officer was just testing me. And so that was kind of like my first time, because I mean, I've been stopped by police officers on multiple occasions, you know, on not even on infractions, you know, things that I couldn't even really control.
So it was 2 officers.
I mean, I got
Two
stopped
separate
by
officers.
2 separate officers in the same night. And then the second time I got stopped, I wasn't just stopped by one officer. He called like his whole squad, and there was like 3 or 4 police cars for this one, and I wouldn't even say it was an infraction because I didn't even do anything. So basically, I was driving, me and my homie and his prom date. We were driving. We had got something to eat. We had left prom. We were getting something to eat at Buffalo Wild Wings. And we were driving back. We were about to go drop his date back off, and then we were about to, you know, go do our thing. And so I noticed his car was behind me, and I was like, what is this car following me? I mean, I couldn't see anything. The lights were so bright. I couldn't see anything in the rearview mirror. So I was like, you know, I'm young. I'm in high school. I'm like, dang, who's following me? So I go into the next lane. The car goes into the next lane with me. And mind you, I'm moving. I'm turning with my blinkers and everything. I go over to the next lane, and I see the car still following me. So I'm like, dang, what's going on? So then finally, you know, we get down a little bit further down the road. I see the cop lights come on. I'm like, dang, did I do something? I know I wasn't speeding. I know I wasn't doing anything wrong. But to me, I'm like, why am I getting stopped? And so the officer came up to me. He's like, do you know why you're being stopped? I said, no. He said, well, you know, you were swerving. And I was like, I wasn't swerving. I was moving from lane to lane because I felt like you were following me. And so we just kept talking. He kept giving me BS. He thought I was drunk. He thought I was high. So to prove him wrong, you know, again, I'm not knowing everything that I know now. It would have been totally different. So, you know, I got out and did the breathalyzer test. I did the whole test. I walked the line, everything. And it didn't really hit me until I told my mom, and my homie told his mom what happened, and they were just like, wow, it's crazy. Like, y'all were really just racially profiled. Like, you don't even really know what was going on. And I didn't know what was going on. So, you know, luckily the situation didn't go left. You know, I did everything the officer told me. But that was still a moment where I was like, man, if I wasn't who I am, like, I probably wouldn't be going through this right now. So, you know, and to go on top of that, a lot of the stuff, as far as being in environments that I've been in, so Cary, North Carolina, you know, sometimes always only being the being one of the few black kids that are in a specific group, it kind of can make you feel uncomfortable because it's not natural, it's not normal to you. But then you learn to adjust. And so I just had some very interesting experiences growing up, but those are just a couple to touch on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like that's way worse than what I've experienced. My first experience with racism, I was 6 or 7 years old. I believe in the first grade, and it was in Florida, and I went to the bathroom, and these group of white girls, they were throwing wet paper tissue or something. They were throwing it on the ceiling. So they would put it on this long sheet of paper, or what was it called? It was some type of paper. It was like a brown, thick paper that you dry your hands off with. But anyway, they threw it up to the ceiling, and you look up, you see all this tissue, wet tissue dripping from the ceiling. And so my teacher was outside the door and heard them laughing. So she came in. I was washing my hands, minding my business. She came in and was like, "What are you girls doing? Why is the floor wet?" And she was looking at the ceiling like, "Who did this?" And the white girls blamed it on me. I didn't even know how to do it. Like, I didn't even know what was going on, but they blamed it on me. And my teacher, unfortunately, she immediately believed them. She just was like, "Melanie, you're in trouble. You're in timeout." And I remember I didn't get my snacks that day because it was like, I was it was just like, okay, the black girl is in here, so she did it. And so I didn't understand that. And I didn't even know it was called racism. I can't even remember. I can't believe that I remember this, but it made me so mad. And she didn't tell my mom either, which is like, okay, so did you know it was racist? Or like, she didn't even explain. Like, when my mom came, she had like nothing happened. So it was, I just thought that was very, very, I didn't know it was racism, but now I do. But so my most recent experience was when I was working at a place in North Carolina, and my supervisor, it was actually an annual sports event that was coming. And my supervisor said, "Oh yeah, we have to close that week because when those people come down here, they don't know how to act. They act like animals." And I didn't know how to react. I didn't know if I react, am I going to lose my job? It was a very uncomfortable situation. So I just chose to ask her a question like, "Well, what do you mean by those people? Who are you speaking of?" And then she tried to soften it and say, "Oh, just everyone who comes down here, they just don't know how to follow the rules." So I just kind of swept it away because I was just uncomfortable. I didn't know what to do. I just mentally made a note that it was time for me to go. So the last situation that happened at that place was a random day. This building has about 7 different companies in it. And this homeless man walks in, I guess probably just to use the bathroom. And she saw it on the camera and she said, "Oh, well, he might try to steal something." And it was a black homeless man, so I feel like that was complete racism. It was a lot of homeless people that would come in to use the restroom. So the fact that this black man comes to use the restroom, now that he might steal something, I just made a face at her like, "Why would you say that?" It was like a questionable face, like, really? So within a couple weeks, I was out. I was ready to go. So it's crazy that was my most recent experience, and that was in 2018. It's so recent, but I've dealt with overall, those were just 2 situations that I can think of that impacted me the most, but I've probably dealt with more colorism than racism. And I guess because I'm considered light skin or brown skin or whatever, so I've dealt with more colorism in my own community than I've dealt with racism from people outside of my community, which has to also be addressed, throughout our community. So with colorism, the biggest, it just really disappoints me to even say it out my mouth, but I was working at a place in North Carolina again, and this black woman that I worked with, she was my coworker. She brought her son in. His son was this cute little boy, light skin, curly, like blondish, brownish hair. He's a really cute little boy. And I was trying to like speak to him or like say, oh, he's so cute, whatever. And then she started to have a conversation about her experience with friends or something. She was just venting. And then she said, yeah, you know, I couldn't be really cool with you like that. And I was like, what do you mean? Why? And she was like, well, because you're light skinned and like y'all are this and y'all are that. So the stereotypes, y'all think y'all better than everybody. Y'all are this, y'all think y'all white. Y'all, like, it was so many crazy stereotypes that I didn't even know were stereotypes. But it was just like the light skinned explanation of you think you're better, so I can't be friends with you, because she was brown. She was like a dark brown skin. And I was like, well, how can you say that about me? You don't know me, one, and two, your son is light skinned. So I'm confused. How can you say that I'm this X type of person just because I'm light skinned? And so that really hurt my feelings. I didn't even know her. It's not like she was my friend or anything, but I just still felt like wow, like really, you gonna say this to like someone in your community just because they're a different shade of yours? Like, I never understood that. And I've dealt with that probably since I got into school, all the way probably until like yesterday. Like, I've dealt with situations of, I mean, even on social media, like, I don't like how the media, the persuasive journalism of media, so the fact that I do see more light-skinned faces than dark-skinned faces or brown-skinned faces. I mean, it's so much persuasive journalism about our community as a whole, but then to see the blatant colorism in the media, I don't appreciate it either. And I can say that as a light-skinned woman, per se. So that was just an example of my experience with colorism. How do you feel as a black man in America?
I wouldn't say that I'm scared, but I'm not as hopeful. I have to think about a lot of different things being a black man in America. I have to think about some of the things that I say in the workplace environment. I have to think about some of the things that I say to people, you know, just people on the streets, because I could be perceived as somebody that I'm not. I have to be mindful of how I dress, mindful of how I look, how my hair is cut. I have to be mindful about how many degrees I have. I have to be mindful about how much money I have. I have to be mindful about everything. I have to be cautious and mindful about everything that I do. I'm a genuine person. I'm a nice person. I'm a very open-hearted, open-minded person. I rarely get mad. If you know me, I'm a very chill person. I have a very chill side on myself. And so, you know, I'm just afraid that there are people out there that do not view me as who I really am. And so that's something that I'm going to have to go through. That's something that, you know, my kids are going to potentially have to go through. That's something that their kids are going to potentially have to go through. And so for me, being a black man in America, I just have to filter and think about everything that I do, because I can be perceived as something that I'm not if I do anything wrong. If I slip up and I do anything wrong, I'm not able to have emotions sometimes. I'm not able to be human. And that's what a lot of African Americans in America, a lot of minorities in America are going through. And that's why you see what you see now on the news, in the streets, at the polls. And that's why it's so important to do the right thing, you know, vote, make sure your voice is heard, teach, educate people who are not educated on what they need to know. And so, you know, to sum it all up, being a black man in America, I'm not fearful. You know, I'm not fearful of a lot of things because of some of the things that I've gone through in life. But I definitely have to think about everything that I have to do before I do it, because I know it's not going to be perceived the same way as if somebody else was to do it.
That's real. How do I feel as a black woman in America? I feel I've never been so proud to be Black, honestly. But in that same token, in that same breath, I wouldn't say scared. I feel just kind of disregarded. I feel the whole bottom of the barrel concept, like that's how I feel. I feel like as a woman and as a Black woman, I feel like I am treated with the least respect, the least regard. I don't feel protected unless I'm with like a man that I know, my brother, Rell, my father. Like I don't feel protected at all. I feel like I have to fend for myself. I mean, obviously not 100%, but I just feel like disregarded. I feel tossed to the side, like I'm not important. It's like I'm not a factor. If I have emotions, then I'm angry automatically. But then if a white person has, or a white woman has emotions, she's powerful and she's confident. But then if I have an emotion, I might get fired at work, or just I have these things in my mind that unfortunately I have trained myself on how to adapt, where I feel like no one has trained themselves to adapt to me. And that's not like everyone in my family, but just in general, I just feel like I adapt to so many people's personality and I adapt to so many people's feelings and emotions, but nobody reciprocates the same thing. So I just feel disregarded. But at the same time, I would not want to be any other race. So that's how I feel. The last topic we're going to discuss is the advice we can give to racist and colorist people. The first thing I would say is educate yourself. That, check yourself before you say something or disrespect or disregard somebody, or just make sure you have a filter and you adjust to the people of different communities, just like Black people adjust to every other white person. Like, so regard us and take us seriously before you ask that question or touch somebody's hair or make a judgmental statement politically or whatever. Just make sure you do your research and regard people's feelings, have empathy for people, try to stand in people's shoes, even though it's very hard and impossible to step into a Black person's shoes if you're not Black and you don't have that experience. Just try to do the work. Read books like White Fragility and look up people and professors like, what is her name? I just had her name. Jane Elliott. So look up and do research on professors and teachers and educators like Jane Elliott. Do your research in how to break that system of racism. As far as colorist people, dig deep within yourself and love who you are for whatever skin tone you are, and not box in people based off of stereotypes that are not true. Don't be so quick. Everybody, don't be so quick to judge someone just because of how they look in their skin. It's ridiculous. Dig deep within yourself and do some soul searching and researching along the way. So the first thing I would just say on both parts was just educate yourself and, do as much research as possible and never stop learning. And teach your friends and your family. Call them out. Don't be a bystander to racism. Call it out, face it head on, and change and break the system for your children and the generations to come. Because that's the only way we're going to make effective change.
I'll say for racist people, sometimes people don't know they're being racist, and some people know they're being racist. And for those people, I would say, it's a very simple saying, like, treat people how you want to be treated. You wouldn't want somebody to classify you as, A, B, and C. Don't do it to that person. I don't understand how people can think they're superior over somebody because of the color of their skin. Like, that's a very interesting theory, and I'll never understand it. But, it's just simple. Like, we're all equal. We all are born, we all die, we all do the same things. Like, we're all the same. We're just, of course, we have different personalities. We come from different environments, but at the end of the day, we're all humans, and we should all treat each other equally. You know, there are people out here that are losing their jobs because they don't like somebody because of the color of their skin. Like, there are people who are losing their jobs, are going viral on social media. It's not that serious. Like, it's not that serious. For people who are colorists, I would say if you really think about the root of colorism, it's just another way to divide people. Just like racism is another way to divide people. So the same thing, you know, treat people how you want to be treated. Love the skin you're in. There's nothing wrong with being dark skinned. There's nothing wrong with being light skinned. There's nothing wrong with being any skin color, red, yellow, blue, purple. Like, I come from a father who's of a darker tone. I come from a mother who's of a lighter tone. And this is what I am. So, you know, just be human. You know, that's all it really comes down to. So whatever you need to do, educate yourself, you know, watch documentaries. But at the end of the day, just be human. You know, treat people how you want to be treated. And that's how simple as it has to be. So.
And therapy. Everybody. I encourage everybody to get therapy. You know, if you do have these questions or these struggles, go get help and ask questions about it. Don't just sit in your ignorance, not Google, not expose yourself, and then just stay in a box. Expose yourself and push yourself to think differently and think and have empathy. So therapy is a great way to do that. Therapy really, really helped me and us, I think, as a unit. So that's all for this episode. This was really hard for us. There's a lot of conversation that we've been recently having, but we hope that you learned something from it, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.